All right, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to introduce our first speaker, who I've known personally for almost a decade. She's the Director of Civil Liberties at the Center for Internet and Society at Stanford. She's one of the leading legal scholars on technology and the internet, and a highly respected voice on legal issues relating to technology and surveillance. When Aaron Swartz was indicted for downloading articles from the JSTOR database, he reached out to our next speaker for help, and she defended Aaron and challenged the scope of law under which he was persecuted. She recently published a legal analysis of the ways in which the government is misrepresenting and misinterpreting the FISA Amendments Act and the Patriot Act to justify mass surveillance. That article is in the New York Times, and its title is The Criminal NSA. Please join me in giving a warm, warm welcome to Jennifer Granick.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. Today I'm here to tell you that now that we know what the NSA is doing, it's time to demand that our representatives, specifically Nancy Pelosi, stand with us to protect the Fourth Amendment, or we're going to vote somebody into office who will. Now we know that the NSA is tapping fiber optic cables around the world and inside the United States, giving access to information about everything that everyone does on the internet. Now we know that the NSA goes directly to companies and gets our emails, our chats, our communications from Google, from Apple, from Microsoft, from Yahoo. And we know that they get this information from Americans to anyone overseas. They can get that information without a warrant. So when they say, we can't read your emails or listen to your phone calls unless we have a warrant, now we know that that was a lie. Now we know that the NSA is collecting phone record information about every single American, who you call and who calls you. And that information is a map of human interactions and can reveal who your friends are, how often you talk to your family, your interactions with doctors, with lawyers, with religious advisors, with strippers, with whomever. And they have that information on every single one of us and have been collecting it for the past 7 years. So now we know when James Clapper told the Congress that they don't collect any kind of data on hundreds of millions of Americans, now we know that that was a lie. And now we know that at least until 2011, the NSA collected internet records on all of us. Very, very revealing information that they collected on all Americans. We don't know where that information is today, but we know that at least until then, they were collecting it. So now we know that mass surveillance is here. We know that now. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Now that we know what the NSA is doing, it's time for us to change it. The checks and balances that we've been told are in place to protect us, we now know those don't work. The courts, the secret FISA court, approves all the requests for surveillance that come before it. And it makes secret law. It has morphed. It has mutated from a court that used to approve secret targets for surveillance into a court that makes secret interpretations of laws that shock even the legislators who passed those laws. It has mutated into something that makes secret interpretations of the Fourth Amendment that allow warrantless searches so long as the government mouths the word terrorism. That's not a check or balance, and we know that now. Congress is supposed to protect us, but now we know that the people who vote for NSA surveillance get twice as much money from the defense industry as those representatives who fight against it. And now we know that those representatives who fight against it don't know, aren't informed what the NSA is doing, and when they ask and they try to find out, they're prohibited from telling us and from telling other legislators under rules about classification and committee proceedings. And now we know that these robust internal protections that the NSA has to make sure that Americans aren't improperly surveilled amount to a user interface with some drop-down menus that have a bunch of pre-approved things that they have to type in there, and then they can surveil people without a warrant. That's not a check and balance. So now that we know, it's time to make a change. It's time to make a change because senators and representatives are coming forward and saying, no more. It's time to make a change because former FISA court judges are coming forward and saying the way that this process works is not the best. We can improve this. We can make it better. It's time to make a change because the companies from which the NSA demands information about us are in turn demanding to tell us what kind of information the government collects on us and how often. It's time to make a change because the mainstream press is finally covering this issue, and that coverage is making a difference. Regular people like my mom and dad, now they know and they care. Polls show that in increasing numbers, Americans are changing their mind about government surveillance, and that Americans believe that the NSA is overreaching and that it's time to make a change. And we can make this change. When a newspaper asked Senator Wyden, who has been fighting against this for such a long time, why now there's traction to stop NSA's overreaching, he said, members of Congress went home, and in senior citizen centers, company lunchrooms, and all kinds of places where the public gathers, citizens are coming up to their legislators and saying, hey, what's all this business about the government collecting my phone records? I didn't do anything wrong. What Wyden is telling us is that when we talk to our legislators, it makes a difference. And so now is the time for us to talk to our legislator, Nancy Pelosi, and tell her it's time to make a change. It's time to stand with us for the Fourth Amendment. Now, Representative Pelosi had a chance about a week ago to stand with us. There was an opportunity to end just one small part of what we now know the NSA is doing, the phone record surveillance, collecting phone information on every single one of us and keeping it for 5 years. There was an amendment that she could have voted for that would have defunded that program. And when time came for Representative Pelosi to vote for that amendment, she did not vote for the amendment. Not only did she vote against it, but the reports were that her efforts to convince other Democrats to vote against it too were the most important reason why that amendment failed. More than anything the administration did, more than what the director of the NSA did on the Hill, it was because Nancy Pelosi went to other Democrats and twisted their arms and said vote against this amendment.
Traitor! Barely killed. Traitor! Get a new job, Nancy. You've overserved your term.
Now in 2005, here's a quote about the law that they say authorizes this phone record surveillance. This law needs a requirement that the government show some connection between the records sought and that the individual is suspected of being a terrorist or spy. Such a standard is needed to ensure that fishing expeditions do not take place, and yet this standard is missing. Who said that in 2005? Nancy Pelosi said that. In 2005, she was against the law because of its potential for abuse, and yet in 2013, she failed to strike it down, even though we now have documented information about its abuse far beyond anything that we could have imagined. She did not stand with us when the time came before, but there will be other opportunities. better opportunities for her to end this mass surveillance and other NSA mass surveillance programs. And the question is, will she stand with us then? She has the very real ability to kill mass spying, and we need to tell her that we expect her to do so. So, if Pelosi does not follow through, if she does not use her considerable power to end mass surveillance, then she does not deserve to represent me anymore. And I ask you, the people here, and all of your friends, and all of the people in San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's district, to stand with me, and to ask Nancy Pelosi to stand with us, and to protect the Fourth Amendment, or we're going to find somebody who will. Thank you very much.